All right. Hi, JC. You're on mute.
Hey, hi guys. Hi, Nicole.
Hi. Thank you, JC. I was just going to provide some quick housekeeping stuff so that we can get started. So our conversation today is going to be with Jitendra Chouksey, and the topic is very interesting. And I'll provide a background on JC before we jump into it. But quickly, as always, please stay on mute and ask your questions in the chat window. We'll make sure to get to them by the end. If you're not already a member of the Longevity Lab, lots of good reasons to do it. It's free and hopefully it adds a lot of value to the members. It's easy to join. Our guest for the next podcast is going to be Dr. Kashinath Bangar. He is a specialist in pain medication. And I've actually had the opportunity to see him in action because as my mom was going through her journey with cancer, Kashinath was very, very critical in dealing with all the side effects and one of the nicest human beings I've ever met. So we'll do that on our next session, which will be in the new year. So this is the last session for this year. The next 2 weeks we'll take a break and then move on to the new set of sessions. All right, on to today's guest, and it's Jitendra Chouksey, but more affectionately known as JC. And while his bio, a very, very shortened version of his bio is up there, I actually want to provide my own background or my own bio for JC. I think from building a WhatsApp fitness group like we have for our community, that's exactly how JC started. And from there, he went on to create Fitter, which is, I think confidently state, is one of India's most influential fitness communities. And now more than just fitness, I think it's now can be called a health care company.
Yeah.
And Jitendra's, JC's journey, I would say, is truly anything but conventional. I would say that, he started off as a sports nutritionist, and from there, he's become a credible role model in health. And the reason I reached out to JC is in a very cold LinkedIn message was because I have spent now the last 10 years trying to figure out my own health and soon trying to figure out how to scale this up. And of the many, many social media influencers I've seen online, I found him to be personally someone who is driven by a strong value system, is mission driven, is not afraid to speak his mind, and I think gets into the science behind why he says what he says. I think that's a very rare combination and one that I personally appreciate a lot. And I truly believe the world needs more of this type of a person. So I'm hesitant to call him a social media influencer because I think that in my mind is not a great tagline. I think I call him a credible, very credible health role model. And so when JC agreed to do this session, I knew our community members, which is all of you, who have all joined this community because you care about getting credible science-backed practical advice. I was confident you're going to enjoy this conversation. So without further ado, JC, welcome to the community podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. You've used a lot of adjectives, and I hope that people listening to me would agree to some of them.
I'm sure if they already know you, they already agree. But if they don't, by the end of the session, I'm confident they will. And so, JC, let's start with, the beginning, right? I remember when we chatted first, you mentioned how your own health situation sort of served as a trigger for you to take control of your health. I don't think when you started off as an engineer, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk in your own words about what was this health journey and what got you into what you do today?
So I started my health journey 25 years back when I was 14 years. Actually, now 26 years back. So I was 14 years, had come back to my home after spending around 4 or 5 years in boarding schools. So I had developed a very messy relationship with food because we were literally starved there. So when I came home, I found my solace in food. And so I started eating more. So I had never had friends. and I found foods to be my friends. And as a result of excess intake, I started gaining weight rapidly. And then one of those days, my friend and I mean, you know how kids are in school, they bully you. And one of them, maybe not in a nice manner, but probably meant well. He said, "Itna khata rehta hai, why don't you go and do some exercise?" So I started exercising in a very small gym. And then, even though my nutrition wasn't fixed, even though I wasn't losing weight, but I got into the habit of working out. The habit stayed with me throughout my IT career. So I've spent around 8 years in IT. I worked with IBM, L&T, and different companies, and SAP, which is ERP, so implementation, migration, and all those things. And then in Bangalore, I was there, and then there was a time when I was exercising. I was going to my job, but at the same time, because it's Bangalore, and you pick a habit or two. I picked up a couple of bad habits like smoking, drinking over the weekends, and then soon after I got married, I came to Pune, and my daughter happened. That's when I realized, hey, I want to be a better father for my daughter. So I quit smoking, quit drinking, and started going to the gym, started following some diet, which I felt which was like clean eating, right? So clean eating as in just eggs and, chicken and, all clean foods. And then it got some results. And back then there used to be bodybuilding forums. So I started accumulating all the knowledge, learned about macros, micros, caloric deficit, surplus, and spent enough time. I got myself down to sub 10% body fat, and then I started just sharing about it online. And so a lot of people from my company, they saw my social media profile, and I was also featured in Men's Health around 2014. So it kind of created a buzz on social media. They reached out to me, they asked me if I could help them get fit. And so I created a small WhatsApp group, a small community, and then I started sharing nutrition and training tips with them, and then creating diet plans for them, training plans for them. And as a result of which, a lot of them started getting fitter and stronger, and they started inviting more people. So when we had more people, we moved on to Facebook community. Thereafter started taking seminars. And I think after doing all of this, we had like 50, 60,000 people on Facebook community. And that's when we realized, okay, I think we should do something better than what I'm doing currently, because I can't possibly train everybody, even though and I was doing it for free. So I said, okay, let me do one thing. Can we convert this into a business model where I educate people? Because that's what I love doing. I'll educate you, and you guys train people, because they want me to train them, and I don't want to train people for money, right? So that way we can create a sustainable ecosystem wherein do what I love doing, which is educating people. You guys become coaches, and you train people. You get money, people get fit, and we can expand this. So that's how the idea of it started. First year itself, we became $1 million company, bootstrapped to almost 10 million ARR, and then got funded by Sequoia, Dreamcap, more recently Rain Matter, and so currently we are a 15, 16 ARR company and hoping to touch 20 mil very soon. So that's a journey in a nutshell, the last 1 decade.
Wow. Congratulations on all the growth. But I think, what really stands out for me, JC, is the approach. You didn't start off trying to make it into a business. You started off trying to help. And in the process, you saw that there was a market. But even then, you did not go down the path of immediately monetizing it. You created this thing. And even today, if I'm not mistaken, there's a lot of education you provide for free. And then you build value on top of it. And it was almost like this theory or philosophy I find very attractive. And that is, first you provide value, then you seek value, which I think is a model a lot of companies should use.
Yeah, so we use something called as a mango tree model. A mango tree bears fruit, and everybody's free to enjoy the fruits, as long as a few good Samaritans continue coming back and water the tree can become much larger, and that little bit amount of water and soil and nutrients, it can create value for far many number of people. Like out of all the people, like today we have almost 7.5 million people in our community, right? Almost 7.5 million people. But if you look at the number of paying customers, it's around 400,000 people. So out of 7.5 lakh people who are getting all of this information for free, only 400,000 people are paid members, right? So a few people who pay allow us to create value for far more number of people. It's like a mango tree model, and it's scalable, it's sustainable, provides us immense amount of joy, and makes it easy to continue to keep growing.
Yeah, no, I think it makes complete sense. And in a country where historically entrepreneurship was not necessarily viewed as a good thing, now that has changed dramatically in the last 10, 20 years. What was the reaction of your parents when you said, I'm going to now, quit my high-paying professional IT job and get into this where there was still no business model or monetization clear?
I mean, I don't come from a typical business background. Like my dad, we used to have a transport business. And before that, my dad used to have a hardware shop. And before that, he used to have a kirana shop, very tiny shop. And I remember this very, small incident. So, you know how in our city, there used to be beggars who'd come and they'll ask you for money. And this one fine day, I was sitting and then, beggar came and I handed him 10 rupee note. And my dad cuts it like, I was like, why? He was asking for money. He needs money. It's like, if you keep giving money to everybody, you'll be there. Like, you'll become the beggar, right? So you have to give like 1 rupee or 50 paisa, not 10 rupees. And it was a big deal, right? So everybody thought that I'll never become a good businessman. And and to this day, I think I'm pretty bad when it comes to making financial decisions. But somehow, things work out. Somehow we survive, and still here after 10 years. So so yeah, I'm still the same kid at heart, but somehow it's all kind of working out. So it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can conclude from what you just said is given our own experience, you are good at what you do, but you're probably also good at surrounding yourself with people who are good at what complements you.
Yeah, it's very important. Those are the guys who are keeping us afloat.
So, I've noticed that over time you've expanded your vision from just fitness to overall health, right? And with a focus on preventive strategies and through lifestyle interventions. And what was the trigger in your mind that told you, you know what, I think fitness is good and it's important, but health is more than just fitness. How did this evolution come about?
I think so. It was more of a natural, how do you say, natural progression. Because as we started this, we thought we were targeting, everybody who wanted to get fit, and we realized that's actually a very small subset of people, and people um, who wanted to actually get fit were people who were having these painkiller kind of problems, which is they were diabetic, they had hypertension, they had obviously chronic obesity remains one of the things, but most of the people are not discomforted by the obesity, but because of the side effects that come with obesity. And then when they started losing weight, they observed that their other parameters, other disorders were becoming better. They were reducing their HbA1c levels, they were reversing their hypertension, they were reversing their fatty liver. All of those things were going in remission, and then we saw more and more people of the same category coming to us. So we realized that we were never really a fitness company. We called ourselves a fitness company because we were into fitness and stuff. But really what we were doing was we were helping people manage and reverse their chronic diseases, NCDs. And so I learned very early on that this is a very transient state of the company. We are not really a fitness company. That's why we never became a gym company or a fitness trainer company. We always called our coaches lifestyle coaches. We don't call them gym coaches or fitness trainers. And over a period of time, we figured, because it's a very interesting business, trying to make people healthy, because trying to make people healthy is not like telling them, hey, go to the gym, exercise and eat right, because everybody knows that. Everyone knows that. But the fact that people are not able to do that is multifactorial, because people, first of all, young people don't give a shit, because no matter how much they put their bodies through, they survive because they're on the positive side of turnover and everything, and so the age is on their side, right? But as they transition into their 30s and 40s, and they meet this inevitable, biology, which then starts troubling them. That's when people realize, okay, I have to do something about it. So, um, what is it? How do you tell these guys when they are transitioning into their 30s and 40s? What is it that's happening to your body?
Hmm.
And what's the first step in understanding whatever is happening to your body and how you can fix that? Because earlier, before fitter, what would happen is that these guys will probably go to a doctor, and the doctor will simply prescribe them a pill. And then the next time the doctor will talk to them, it will be another 15 minutes over the next 3 months or 4 months or 6 months period, or maybe once in a year. And these people are on chronic medication. And while they're managing their HbA1c levels, let's say somebody came from 8 to 7, it's consistently there, and the dosage will increase. The symptoms are not getting better. Diabetes also is getting worse. Then apart from diabetes, they go from one medicine to another medicine to another medicine, and it's actually just making them feel comfortable in the moment, but it's not fixing issues. Like, people are not getting healthier.
Yeah.
And here it was the opposite. The people were coming, and they were getting healthier, they were reversing their chronic issues, they were rediscovering what it means to be healthy in 30s and 40s and even 50s and 60s, right? So that transition didn't happen by just telling people what was obvious. It took a lot of effort to understand the behavioral aspect of it. So behavioral psychology is now integrated as a part of the course curriculum that we teach our coaches, the INFS scholars. So behavioral psychology case studies, these things are very tightly integrated. So apart from understanding the basic biochem, physiology, nutrition, muscle physiology, your behavioral psychology plays a very important role in understanding the baseline of the users. Because historically, what used to happen is people had this notion that dieting and training is extremely punitive, and
Hmm.
whenever you have a negative association with something, your mind tries to resist. The mind's like, you know what, I can do that, and I know I can do that, I'm pretty confident I can do that, but let me do it on Monday, or let me do it from next week or next month or next year. And that next never really comes. So why are people um, so healthy phobic? It's because traditionally being healthy has been associated with being punitive. And so we had to remove that barrier from people's mind and tell them, hey, training isn't that hard. And training doesn't mean grinding in the gym for 2 hours. You literally start with 5 minutes. And then you go from 5 minutes to maybe 6 minutes a day and 7 minutes a day, and make it a habit. Like brushing your teeth takes 5 minutes, exercise for 5 minutes. Don't eat boiled chicken or rice. Tell us what you're eating and see if we can make 5% adjustment. And by doing that 5% adjustment to the diet and adding that 5 minutes of exercise and adding additional 1,000 steps, the next day the person loses weight and their mind's blown. They're like, this is crazy.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
did not know it was so simple to lose weight. I've been doing everything and it did not work. And I just made these minor changes and my weight dropped. You know what? Tell me more. And we're
Yeah.
like, fine. Can you do 10 minutes of exercise? Can you walk 2,000 extra steps? Can you drink 2.5 liters of water? And can you sleep one more extra hour? So
Yeah.
that's what it took someone who's a non believer and who thought that they are always going to live through medicine to finally realize that health is not that difficult. And so that was the toughest part. And then as we transitioned, I mean, everything else is pretty much, like you wrap it up, because without understanding what the real issue is, you can't really fix it. So diagnostic kind of became the first part. The coaching, the intervention, the doctors, everything is the intervention there. And then the monitoring was always an obvious choice, because we tell people eat this, we tell them to exercise, We tell them to sleep more, but we rely too much on people telling us the truth. And so when that happens, it's good. When it doesn't happen, it creates disconnect. So we thought monitoring would be a good option. So we introduced wearables, right? So everything fits in nicely. You diagnose, you intervene with the help of doctors and coaches, and then you use wearables for monitoring, and then the whole cycle repeats.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it makes complete logical sense, and I want to sort of dig into each of those aspects. So we spoke about, the like in our community we call it small changes, big differences, right? Which is to your point of, don't try and tell somebody, hey, now become a vegan and suddenly
Yeah.
you'll be healthy. They are not going to suddenly become vegan if they are eating meat every day. Instead, focus on what they do and make tweaks around that. So I think that is such a powerful but highly underestimated thing, right? The power of small changes. The second thing that I've seen, and I know you do that, you spend a lot of time doing it, is building awareness in a very credible manner. Because today there is so much information out there on social media, and I would say 95% of it is wrong, because
Yeah.
that person is trying to sell you something and they're almost like priming you, and
Yeah.
then they will tell you what they have to sell you. And I want to sort of double click on that. JC, you spend time putting out a lot of content just in what I call first principles approach, right? You'll get into the fundamentals of something and explain why something is a good thing to do or something is not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
How has that evolved over time? Because 5, 10 years back, I don't think people would care. But today, people seem to care as long as you make it simple and it comes from somebody they consider credible.
Right. So again, let me give you a simple example. We as kids, we grew up watching Superman, Batman, and almost all the Hollywood movies, to the point that we just wanted to be Americans. We pride in everything that America was doing, the whole westernization thing, right? And when we watched Bollywood movies or South Indian movies, kind of felt embarrassed,
Hmm.
because it seemed like these movies are logical, these movies are nonsensical, these movies have heroes and they perfectly follow the laws of gravity while we dance in the middle of a fight. And that always bothered me. And I mean, again, it would bother anybody who has a little bit of logic in their heads. But one thing you realize that it's not that America was good. It's just that they knew how to package and market and execute and present the content well, right? And then over a period of time, and every time, you had like America has like such a dark history, but it's painted in such a manner that it feels like they're the world's biggest heroes. When in reality, if you see, most of the trouble is caused by America historically, right? So when I grew up as in I understood what this all is about. It's basically just marketing, and it's just extreme commercialization, extreme capitalism, where the narratives were being set because there was something that was to be sold to the people. And so, in a neutral market where nobody has any commercial interest, I think people would not think China is bad. People would not think Syria is bad, or Iran is bad, or Iraq is bad, or Japan is bad. But we grew up thinking that all of these countries were bad, and America was the only superhero fighting and saving humanity against all of these villains, right? And so we realized that it's not a neutral market. So if you don't speak, somebody is already speaking on your behalf. If you don't identify yourself, your identity is set by people around you.
Yeah.
And so if you are not vocal, you will be shut down and you will be silenced. And so I realized this very early on. Boss, if I'm doing something, people need to know what I'm doing, why I'm doing. And I don't have to agree or disagree or whatever. I'll use what's universal, which is science. So I relied on science. I relied on evidence-based medicine. And so when you have evidence-based medicine on your side, which fundamentally everybody agrees on, at least the scientific community, it's easier to cut through noise. and then you end up as the last man with the argument, at least if the science is correct and you're not biased, right? So there's that. And so I've always relied on science heavily. And in a country like India, it's difficult to, win using science because, again, you have people who appeal to emotions, culture, deities, and all of those things. But I still found that sticking to science is still better. And so, it was like simultaneously creating education, awareness, because I also counted on one thing that over a period of time, people are going to become smarter and not dumber. Uh, I don't know how much of that is true in a current context, but I know for a fact that a lot more people appreciate me, whatever I've done over the last 10 years, versus, let's say, the number of people who hate me for whatever I'm doing. So I'd say on a 5-star rating, I'm happy with my 4.3, 4.4. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to double click on that, JC. Nobody can ever accuse you of not speaking your mind, right? You are very clear about where you stand, what you believe in, and it's always entertaining, if nothing else, to watch the comments, okay, on some of your posts, because there's always somebody out there who has a very very different view and all of that.
Yeah.
As you try to build a business, uh, there is going to be people who love you, and then are people who are not going to love you. But like you said, net, it is very positive.
Yeah.
How do you emotionally, mentally deal, even though it's few voices? I mean, because at the end of the day, we are human. How have you dealt with getting over that? Has it ever affected you, or has it never affected you, all this negative talk, and how do you deal with it?
Oh, okay. So I'm one of those guys who are always getting affected by these things. So I'm not emotionally as strong as some of the people. In fact, some of these things deeply affect me. I have to tell you this. And ever since I was a kid, I was pretty emotional, and anything that people say, it hurts me. So it's never easy to deal with any kind of negative sentiment that's out there. And so it does two things. It makes me want to do even better than what I am doing. And not because I have to immediately respond to them, because I want them to know that they were wrong. And it's just like, I know that's kind of like petty in me, but I'm just telling you the truth. But I want to do better. Like if somebody says, JC, you're wrong, then I'll present a better argument. And if they say, JC, you're gonna fail, I will make sure to not fail. So in a way, these people are making me strong. I do take it personally. So I train harder the next day in the gym. And these things, I use all of that anger and channel it to become even better and better and better. And every now and then I rant it out. So I'm like, yeah, see, 10 years back, people were like this. Where are those guys? Nowhere. I'm here. Right. So I love flexing it from time to time. It's like my personal victory.
Yeah, yeah,
So
no, I get it. I get it. I identify with that, by the way, and I've
yeah,
come to the conclusion. I also find myself, very similar to you, and I find that having a chip on the shoulder
yeah.
is almost a necessity when you try to do something new, because you are going to get hammered from people who are non-believers,
See, I
and
don't want to be in a place where I'm not affected,
yeah,
because then you lose your human side.
yeah,
I've tried doing that, and it's very cold. And where you just post the content and you like shut it down, and people are commenting, and see what happens in that is that then you shut everybody off. So somebody's looking for help, then you are helping them. And personally, it has, you can say that it's almost a habit. Like if somebody asks me a question, I have to respond. Even now, if somebody reaches out, JC, can you do this? JC, can you do that? I have to respond to them. People tag me on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. And if they ask me a question, I have this urge to kind of help them. And so it's very difficult for me to kind of read all the questions and try and answer, then come across a bad response or somebody trying to mock or do something and then not read it, not get affected. It's not entirely possible. I don't respond back, but it affects me. To say it does not affect me, I would be lying. It
yeah.
does affect me, and it makes me want to do better.
Yeah. No, makes complete sense. Now, I want to dig into a couple of things that I know you've been very vocal about, and I think they're very
Sure.
important for the community to understand. The
Sure.
first one is GLP-1, right?
Yeah.
This is, I mean, everyone knows it's going crazy. It first started in the US, it went crazy here. Now it seems to be picking up steam in India.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that's been said and done. And because I know what your views are, they match mine as well. But I think it'll be useful if you could share the whole topic of GLP-1. When is it right? When is it not right? For whom is it right? For whom is it not right? And what has to go with it for it to be effective?
See, the thing is that because this is a blockbuster drug, and a lot of pharma companies are now trying to hide facts, which I believe is not right. Um, I think that this drug can be helpful for people who are dealing with chronic obesity. Somebody who's a BMI 40 and above, honestly, I don't agree with the 30 and above. Those can be easily fixed. Somebody who's a BMI 40 and above, somebody who can't move, somebody who's immobile, those are the kind of people who'll have more benefits compared to the risk. And there's always a risk, right? So you have to weigh in the upside versus downside. Having said this, the reason why I'm not happy with the way the drugs are being peddled in the market is because it's almost as if the pharma companies wanted these products to go viral. They created this artificial scarcity when the compounded drugs came in. They were like, "Oh no, we are available," right? So they do this. It's a history of Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly. They've done this historically. These two giants, and not just them. Almost all pharma companies are like this, right? So they did. I mean, except for one or two companies like really ethical. Most of the pharma companies are like this, right? So they marketed it so bad through celebrities, through influencers. There were reports where they were paying $100,000 per video on TikTok to influencers, and so huge celebrity endorsements and everything. Tell me, when was the last time a celebrity endorsed statin or metformin on TikTok? They did not,
Mhm.
right? Because these are not patent drugs anymore, right? So specific pharma companies don't benefit from them. So what happens when the likes of Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, when they launch their blockbuster drugs, right? They want to capitalize on the drugs as quickly as possible, and they have this speeding ticket budget. So they estimated that they'd be able to rake in at least 40 to 50 billion dollars per year, and if the lawsuits also come in, they'd assume that that's maximum 10% of the total revenue, right? So that's how typically pharma operates, and we have seen similar kind of um, history with Zyprexa, which was a drug. It came out in the market in 1996 and became a blockbuster by 1999 as Zyprexa. And they said this is a magic drug that's going to treat your depression. And then the lawsuit started piling, and then the court found them guilty. And by the time it was done, it was 2008. And then by the time everything the dust settled, it had already done a lot of damage. It had already raked in some 40 billions in revenue, and 4 billion fine from the court, and court found them guilty was basically a speeding ticket, right? So this is Zyprexa 2.0. And before this, we had drugs like fentanyl, we had penfen, um, uh, we have so many other different drugs which have created problems in people, and they were always dressed up as these miracle drugs, and then they turn out that they were not so miracle drugs. See, one thing we have to understand is that human biology is built on genetics, right? So genetics is, think of a uh, computer, right? Computer operates on assembly. Whatever you write on a Word document is going to change the content of the Word document. It's not going to affect the underlying code. Accidentally, it can maybe affect the memory, or if you open too many programs simultaneously, the laptop can crash, right? But it's not willingly doing something to the assembly code. So similarly, most of the biologics that we use, most of the hormones, orals we use, they primarily affect the downstream mechanisms. Okay, they don't affect at gene level in a desirable manner. Any effect is undesirable or likely an accident. Okay, so whatever they're doing, they're affecting at a very surface level. For example, antipyretics, they reduce fever. They don't actually clear off the infection. Antibiotics are the same, right? So similarly, whenever you take any kind of drugs, they have a downstream mechanism, but they don't necessarily address the root of the problem. The root of the problem happens when you have gene expressions and genes are expressing certain things because of X, Y, Z. It could be because of environment, because of something or something, right? So drugs, the biologics cannot address those mechanisms. So they basically work at a very high level. Having said this, we have vaccines, which are incredible. Having said that, we have a lot of life-saving drugs, which are incredible. But if you look at the history of chronic drugs, they're not very successful. This study, they said diabetes prevention program, and then they had an extended study, this is the DPPOS. Then they had the Accord trial, then they had the advanced trial, right? All of these trials, when they did comparison between metformin versus lifestyle intervention, they found out 52% reduced risk of diabetes with lifestyle intervention versus 21% reduced risk of diabetes with metformin. In fact, one of the studies was shut down in the middle because way too many people were dying on metformin, right? So in the short term, it feels like these drugs are working, but when you look at them in a long period of time, you realize that these drugs are not better than lifestyle interventions. The same thing happened in case of SSRIs. The same thing applies to orthopedic surgeries. Most orthopedic issues, most pain management surgeries are not better than conventional therapies over a longitudinal period. Like the effects are sudden, but when you match them over a, let's say, a 2 year, 3 year timeline, conventional therapies beat orthopedic surgeries, right? So I'm saying a lot of what we see from the medical system, from the healthcare system, and again, I'm not against medical system. I'm not anti-science. I'm just telling you what the researchers have found out is that a lot of it is dressed up because there's incentives. Okay, the way it works is pharmaceutical companies make the drug. The drugs are circulated with a network of, let's say, hospitals, which have incentives, which have revenues, which have per bed hospitalization revenue, and then those incentives are further tied to healthcare professionals, where they're incentivized basis the number of prescriptions they are writing, basis the number of drugs they are writing, basis the number of treatments they have prescribed. So the entire system works on an incentivization model that's incentivized to keep you sick, not healthy.
Yeah.
In US, there's something called as the CPT codes. So right now, the CPT codes say that if somebody prescribes a lifestyle intervention, they receive less than $10 or practically nothing at all. But if they write a Ozempic, they get $100 to write their first prescription and $40 for every single follow-up. So where's the incentive for the doctor to prescribe lifestyle intervention and say, don't take Ozempic, focus on lifestyle intervention? So I'm saying, even if some doctors say, hey, you know what, I really want to help you out, but the incentives are such that it's just hard to believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
In countries where such incentives don't exist, we have much better health outcomes. In Japan, for example, you have 4% obesity as opposed to 40% obesity in the US. US spends the most as a fraction of their GDP in the whole world. And yet in the high income countries, it ranks the lowest. It is 36 out of 38 high income nations. It
Yeah.
spends the most in the world, right? With 40% obesity. Japan spends, on the contrary, roughly 11%. US spends 20%. So I'm saying when incentives are misaligned, they result in a system that seems like it's working for you, but it's actually just making you sicker and unhealthier.
And JC, in India, where does that fall between the Japan and US numbers?
So we follow 100% US model, a broken US model. So we also have similar kind of incentives. We don't use CPT codes. We use broken MSI codes. Different hospitals have their different codes. So, and apart from that, you have the pharma, you have the diagnostic labs, you have doctors. And so with every prescription they write, they get a commission. With every test they prescribe, they get a commission. With every treatment they prescribe, they get a commission.
And
So
again,
when
nothing
somebody
for
says,
lifestyle.
yeah, so when someone says, hey, go on GLP-1 drugs, do they really understand what GLP-1 drugs are? No, they've attended a seminar on GLP-1 drugs conducted by a pharma company that's selling GLP-1 drugs. Right
Yeah.
now, people are like, oh, GLP-1 drugs have this Ozempic face. And this Ozempic face is because people are losing fat. When was the last time you saw somebody naturally losing fat looking like a zombie? This is
Yeah.
not normal fat loss. In a normal fat loss, people don't look like zombies. This is cachexia, which is a very common trait in cancer patients, in people who undergo crash diets, or people who are sick. And this cachexia, it's a marked by degradation in your collagen synthesis and rapid muscle loss.
Yeah.
So these drugs are causing people muscle loss. They are degrading their collagen production. And as a result of which people are aging, they are getting more wrinkly skin. So Ozempic face, Ozempic butt, Ozempic vulva, Ozempic ear, Ozempic feet. All of these things are as like we have to make a new Ozempic dictionary. And they are saying, oh, this is just because of fat loss.
Yeah.
You've seen so many people in fitter community losing 50, 60 kgs. They don't look like zombies. These people are looking like zombies because they are losing structural tissues. They're losing muscles. They're losing collagen from their face, from their ears. When was the last time you saw somebody's earlobe hanging because they have lost fat?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
And
agree.
there's a mechanism. Obviously, you don't have evidence in humans because what is the incentive for somebody to conduct such a research in humans? But we have in vivo mechanistic data where it says that GLP-1 receptor agonists, which is the GLP-1 drugs, they increase cyclic AMP and they promote mTORC1 in beta cells, which is how they work as incretins, increase insulin secretion. But in other tissues, they actually reduce the mTORC activation. And so mTORC1 is primarily needed for synthesis of collagen and muscle protein synthesis. So in a normal physiology, in a non-drug environment, in a non-GLP-1 RA environment, the body will decide or shift its physiology between AMPK and mTOR depending on the availability of food, low energy versus high energy. In this case, whether you are in low energy or high energy, your body cannot enter the mTOR pathway, or the mTOR pathways, mTOR1 effect is considerably reduced and you have more AMPK. And this inhibits the synthesis of protein. This inhibits the synthesis of collagen.
Yeah.
Nobody
Yeah.
is going to go out there and explain because it's not beneficial for companies to do research on this. We have mechanistic evidence. You can go check AI and it will tell you that this mechanism makes sense. But they're not going to conduct the study on humans, because if they do that, there's going to be a whole lot of lawsuits coming their way again.
Yeah. And I just, for the community members, I just want to say that the point that were just made by JC about mTORC and AMPK, there was a blog post I'd written a couple of months back trying to explain this in sort of simple layman terms, and we'll put that in the show notes if you just want to dig into what all of this means, because this is a very important point and one that needs to be understood in order to truly appreciate what it's doing to our bodies.
Chemicals and other exports worth more than $3 billion to Oman. Tariff-free, with New Delhi and Muscat set to sign a trade deal on December
Sorry, I think
18th.
somebody's on, not on mute. Okay. Yeah. So in any case, we'll share that with the community. But I think this also leads JC to the topic of the whole model of value-based care, right? Can you talk about that? Because I know recently you've also alluded to that as a model that has been shown to be successful when done well, of course. Can you explain that?
So value-based care was suggested by WHO, in fact, in India also, when they were working on the ABDM and ABHA, where they said, hey, the incentives have to be aligned. Like you can't have a system where the incentives are misaligned. So we have to focus on the healthcare workers also, because to be very honest, I don't find doctors to be party to this exploiting system. I find them more as a victim. And then over a period of time, once the victim stays in the system, they kind of become part of the system, right? So because if doctors are forced against their will and they are paid only on writing expensive tests, what choice do they have? So a value-based care system fixes that for doctors. It pays them upfront. It pays them whatever they deserve in the first place instead of depriving them of money. And so we pay our doctors. For example, we have doctors on our panel, so we pay them well. We pay them a fixed salary, and the incentives are given on top of that once you see better outcomes in the patients. So, for example, if a patient comes to our NCD clinic, we'll diagnose and we'll understand what are the issues. Let's say this person has, fatty liver, or let's say diabetes. The doctor will be incentivized if the HbA1c actually goes down and the medicines are reduced. If the medicines are increasing, then the doctor is not getting that incentive.
Yeah.
So it completely flips the system, brings in more trust, brings in more accountability. And a value-based system is where people benefit from people actually invested in their well-being rather than making them dependent on chronic medication. Now, in typical hospital systems, this cannot work because they don't have an integrated preventive care model. Because if everybody focuses on preventive health care, then nobody will go to the hospitals. And so for them, it does not work. But for companies like us, who started off as a preventive healthcare company, it works perfectly well because we get paid to keep you healthy.
Yeah.
In case of hospitals, they kind of make money when you are unhealthy. We make money when you are healthy. So our incentives are perfectly aligned with your desired outcome. That is not the case with hospitals. They make money from people who are sick.
Yeah. Yeah. No, completely agree. And when you're talking earlier about metformin,
Yeah.
I know there's this sudden craze in this longevity community in general about how metformin is magically going to help improve, which has been disproven, but yet it continues to float around. And there are so many such things that are floating around.
Yeah.
What is the way to educate people about it? Is it just the hard work of getting the word out there with more and more people trying to do this the right way, or is there a better approach? Should the government get involved in sort of shutting down this? Can the government keep up with this?
See, unfortunately, the world either, again, I should not be too dramatic about it, but you either get better or you either get worse. And depending on the surrounding and depending on, how things around you are moving. So I feel like US, for example, it's on a negative spiral right now. And so it will continue down that path for quite some time until there's like some sort of a revolution or some sort of an awakening or some sort of like a civil movement. It kind of shocks the entire system, and then everybody's like, oh, we fucked up. Let's build it again. And I think similar kind of thing is going to happen in India at some point of time. I don't know, it may take 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. But currently, the system is designed to spiral down and get worse over a period of time. Right? So with these drugs, again, it's like things are not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. So I would say this is a very taxing time for somebody who's trying to do the right thing. And I don't know, like it's very difficult to convince yourself to get up and try and educate people every single day. It's very, very difficult. You do it because you're like, okay, maybe there are a few people who will understand. So you do it for those few of them, but you never think about the masses here, because if you do that, you'll hurt yourself. You realize that out of 100 people, maybe 2 people are listening to you. The 98 will never listen to you. So you focus only on those 2 people. Right? Fuck the 98 guys. They don't want to listen to us. It's okay. I'm not going to waste my breath trying to save them. They are beyond saving. Or maybe they've chosen their destiny. So this is the part that takes a lot of time for you to come to terms with. You want to save everybody, but you just can't. And you have to live with this guilt, or you say, it's not my burden. I don't want to do this. I'll just save whoever I can, whoever's listening. And that's about it. And it's just tough, but you have to deal with it. So that's,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like the frog in the boiling water syndrome, right?
Yeah,
Just
and you're watching them.
happening is
You're
happening.
watching them every single day, and you're like, okay, guys, come on, don't do this, don't do this. But you know they are going to do this. You try, okay, don't do this, maybe, but it's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So JC, let's talk about, you. I know you went on I want to get to a 6% body fat goal, if I remember correctly. I don't know,
Yeah,
to 6%, but to somewhere. And how is that going? And can you talk about, there are obviously a lot of small things that you have integrated into your lifestyle. I know I have done it, so it's very difficult to give this. Here are 3 things you can do. But for a person who's starting off, what are
Yeah.
some of the few lifestyle habits that they should focus on? So 2 questions, JC, for you. One is, how is your journey coming along? And second, what are the things you would say as 2, 3, 4 things that people should take up that is easy to do?
Right. So on my journey, I started off on a high note. I was doing great, and then I met with my PCL injury. It's a recurring injury which happened, and then again I had to cut down on my exercise and everything. It's healing. I mean, I didn't stop going to the gym. I was still going to the gym, but the intensity got down way down. And then I had my US travel, so I went there for 2 weeks, and I've been constantly traveling. Having said this, I'm back on track. So I'm not sure if you've seen my recent pictures. I'm shredding. I'm getting better, more muscular. I do believe I'm currently sitting at sub 10% body fat, but I think I'd be able to get down to 6% by February. Again, it's just a personal thing. It's not for
Yeah.
anything. It's like, can I do it at 40? It's one of those things. I've done it before in my 20s and 30s. Can I do it at 40? So it's like a promise to self, nothing beyond that.
Yeah.
And second question is about how should one do that? Okay, look, going to 6% body fat is not something one should aim for, uh, especially in the first attempt, unless you want to step on the stage or something. I think the first thing you should do is you should build the right relationship with what it means to be healthy. I've been doing this for 25 years. It's as easy for me as breathing. For somebody who's never done this in their life, it is going to be probably the worst thing you've ever embarked on, because you're not fighting just yourself, you're fighting every single person around you. And every single move you make, every single thing you do, you will be questioned. Like, what are you doing? Who eats like this? Why are you going to the gym? Is something wrong with you? And then you have to shut those noises, and you just have to fix that mindset. And as long as you're convinced you're doing the right thing, that's it. That's the first part. You have to convince yourself that you want to be a healthy and a fit person, and not because people will respect you more, not because you'll get more job offers or you'll suddenly become hot and sexy, because you respect yourself. The kind of confidence that you get from being fit and being able to go do the hard work every single day, it just compounds. It gives you so much confidence. I know for a fact that if somebody took away my money, if they took away my home, they left me on the road for like nothing, I'd be able to build myself up. That confidence comes when you know how to build something from scratch. And most of the people will never know this. So I think it all starts with people trying to become mentally and physically strong. So first you have to visualize yourself that I'm not this person, I'm that person. And so from me to go from here to there, I have to first start visualizing the kind of person I want to be.
Yes. And JC, I want to add one interesting comment that something I read some time back, which is you've built that attitude in your own mind when you say, I want to live healthy, not because of how it makes me look, but because of how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that probably sort of is a version of what you're saying, right? Is it has to feel good. You
Yeah.
have to feel good about yourself. And
Yeah.
then let's say you've gotten the right mindset.
Yeah.
What are some of the low-hanging fruit as from an intervention perspective that you would say, if you have to start on this tough journey because you're starting off for the first time, here are the few things that try and incorporate into your lifestyle.
Well, for most of the people these days, being unfit is basically the number of unhealthy habits they have. And the minute they start removing the unhealthy habits, they start getting healthier. So getting healthy is not adding more stuff, but removing a lot of stuff that's useless, that's actually making you unhealthy. So if somebody is drinking alcohol, alcohol is bad for you. It kills your yeah, affects your DNA. It propagates cancer in your body. It mutates your cells. A lot of bad things come out of alcohol. It kills your brain cells, makes you violent, and many other things. And over a period of time, it also leads to cognitive impairment. So alcohol is like a strict no-no. And then if you're smoking, that same effect like alcohol, right?
Yeah.
Then again, it affects your mitochondria. So it also affects your, uh, uh, you know, um, your fat physiology, right? It affects your fat metabolism, right? So that alcohol and tobacco are the lowest hanging fruits, which everybody should work on. Like if you are drinking and smoking, you're not healthy. Let me put it bluntly. If you smoke and you drink, it doesn't matter how many times you work out, it doesn't matter how clean you eat, you're not healthy. Internally, your body is rotting. If you get rid of them, you start getting better. Then drink water. Like so many people have hypertension, and this is you go to a doctor, they'll say, oh, because secondary hypertension, primary hypertension. Most of the hypertension in a lot of places is primarily because people simply do not drink enough water. Not drinking enough water leads to kidney issues, dehydration, and then kidneys have to work harder. They increase your blood pressure. It's a how do you say, it's a chronic response to chronic dehydration. And dehydration, it's like how obesity leads to diabetes, chronic dehydration leads to hypertension. And for a long period of time, people thought, oh, but obesity is probably because of this and that and that. And everybody's taking GLP-1 drugs, which is reducing their obesity, and suddenly their diabetes is getting better. Right? So same happens with hypertension. They'll say, oh, hypertension is because of this, and that. They start drinking water, and suddenly they feel better. So I'm saying drink water. The
Right.
third thing is exercise. Muscles are the biggest sink for glucose in the body. Most of the metabolic disorders happen because people don't exercise. When you don't exercise, your body cannot effectively metabolize glucose. The GLUT4 transporters, they are not just activated when you have too much of insulin in the body. There's also exercise mediated GLUT4 uptake, right, which also improves your insulin sensitivity. So when you train, you improve your insulin sensitivity, your body becomes better at handling glucose.
Yeah.
When your body is bad at handling glucose is when most of the metabolic disorders arise. So you have PCOS, you have fatty liver, you have insulin resistance, and you have diabetes. These are primarily because you don't exercise. If you start exercising, these issues will automatically go away. And
Yeah.
then sleep. Most of the neurological and disorders and injuries happen because of lack of sleep. REM sleep fixes your mind, deep sleep fixes your body. It's like, think about your car. You keep driving the car, you don't take it to service, the wear and tear accumulates, and it keeps on accumulating. And one fine day the car breaks down, and you're like, oh, it happened because of this or that or that. It's primarily because you didn't take the car to the service when it's needed. You didn't do the service. And so when you have to sleep every single day for 8 hours, that's the preferred biological uh, like the right thing to do, for your biology. When you don't do that, the wear and tear accumulates in your mind, in your body, and then over a period of time, when you keep on doing this, you suffer from neurological problems, suffer from fractures, injuries, all of those things. We have sufficient evidence for that. So eat right amount of food, exercise every single day, eat enough protein, enough fruits and vegetables, drink enough water, quit alcohol, quit smoking. These are some basic things, and you don't have to do extreme. Just be mindful. Do 1% change every single day. If you do extreme, you'll go from this extreme to the other extreme. Never do extreme.
Yeah, not sustainable.
No, not sustainable.
So I know we are well over time. I just want to do a couple of audience questions, JC, if you're okay with it.
Sure.
Nadia says, JC, very, very interesting journey. Thank you for sharing. Can you please share your Insta handle? We'll make sure to include that in the show notes, because I would recommend everybody follow JC. You'll find his content very useful, very insightful. So we'll make sure to share.
Also offensive. At times, it's also very offensive to some people.
I think the community members are the ones who will be in the bucket who will actually enjoy it. So
Okay, perfectly fine.
Shruti was, as a health coach, how do you support patients who have been prescribed Mounjaro by their doctor, are not above a BMI of 40 and feel anxious or disappointed because their weight loss is slower than they expected?
Well, so right now, if people are coming to us, we are clearly telling them that, look, hey, you are on Mounjaro, and dieting and training don't go hand in hand, unfortunately. If your doctors are telling you they can go hand in hand, maybe you should speak to your doctor, because I have not come across people who are on Mounjaro and Ozempic and they can eat right, because they are puking. Anything you ask them to eat, they'll puke. And what will happen is the doctor will raise their hands in the air. So if you get involved, and if they face any kind of issues, they'll be like, oh, it might be because of the food or because of that. Or same thing happens with metformin. So many years, people kept telling people, you do diet, you are bloating and this and that. And when you ask them, what drugs are you on, they're like, metformin. Like bloating, GI, bleeding, all of these things are common side effects of taking metformin for a long time. So I would suggest that you wash your hands of such people. Either they want to reduce their Mounjaro or whatever the hell they are taking, GLP-1 drugs, you can guide them. If they are not willing to come off of them, then ask them to talk to their doctors, who have told them that, Mounjaro and dieting and training can go hand in hand, because as a health coach, it will not bode well for you, because in the end, they will always listen to what the doctor is saying. And so if anything happens, the blame would be on you, not the doctor.
Yeah. Geetanjali's question is, fitter for females, how has the platform seen engagement? Is it a pull or a push from the female community? JC?
Yeah, sorry, I lost you there. Sorry. What was the question?
Sorry. The question was from Geetanjali, fitter for females. How has the platform seen engagement? Is it a pull or push from the female community?
Fitter has always been a balanced platform, so we have more female coaches, if anything. So currently, I think the split is 51-49, 49 in favor of females and 51% men. So I would say that it has largely remained the same. We have not seen, any kind of imbalance there. A lot of females, and I think it is also marked by the fact that we have more female coaches. We find female coaches to be more empathetic, more engaged, especially because it's an online medium. And in India, people love talking more. And I find that talking to people comes very naturally to women. Like, I suck at talking and I suck at coaching people, right? So I believe that females make the best health coaches. The best part is that they are very, how do you say, they're nice. Yeah, people like us, we are assholes. So we are very strict, more disciplined, and sort of like, we're like, just do it and shut up and do it. Yeah, so obviously, you don't need me to be your coach, right? That's like, you shouldn't. I mean, I'm better when I'm training maybe one or two people. I'm maybe downgrading myself. I'm actually a pretty decent guy, but
I think you're underplaying yourself. You're under.
I can't coach people. Like I find it difficult to coach people, even though I've trained a lot of people. Like I've trained Nusair, and he would vouch by me. I'm a good coach, but yeah, but he's also straightforward. Like if I have to like coax people, if I have to like be like their boyfriend, girlfriend, babu sona khana khalo, protein pee lo, ye kar lo, I can't do that. And some of our female coaches actually do that very well. So there's that, yeah.
Uh, and then the last question from Ashish: chronic disease medication question on asthma. Like BP medication, asthma medication is for maintenance only, not cure. Is there something in the value-based medicine pipeline for asthma cure?
So again, we have to look at NCDs and normal diseases. See, the problem with normal disease, like for example, asthma is not NCD, right? NCDs are non-communicable diseases primarily stemming from lifestyle. And so these are some of the things that can be fixed via lifestyle. So for example, diabetes, hypertension, PCOS, CVDs, certain types of cancers like oral and your lung cancer. So these come under NCDs, wherein you remove the cause or you remove the bad lifestyle, and some of these things can get better over a period of time. So you have the non-cause. So there's a causality which we already know, that you are getting obese because you're eating too much food or your diet is improper. So fix the diet, you reduce the weight, and then associated disorders go away, right? Unfortunately, for diseases like asthma, or let's say a viral infection, or let's say an autoimmune condition, we don't have those causality established. Like, what do we change to fix asthma? Like, is there a lever that we can press or move that improves asthma in people? We know that exercise improves asthma. Exercise also improves and helps in case of autoimmune conditions. Exercise helps in multiple things, but can it reverse? Can it completely heal, completely cure? Unfortunately, we don't know the answer. There is evidence that exercise can also, so there's something called a shear stress. So, and we found there's data that suggests that exercise can also induce shear stress, which can reduce uh, certain tumor cells, right? So it can also help in case, and almost works as well as immunotherapy, right? So again, some very preliminary research which says that high intensity training works as well as immunotherapy, right? Which is crazy. And so I'm saying that there's a lot of things for which the answer isn't simple lifestyle habits, but how much is the causation? Like, what's the degree of causality? We don't know that yet.
Yeah.
So you can try fixing some of the things. For example, if you are and you have asthma, can you find out if there's some sort of allergy that you are constantly exposed to? Then can you work out and see if you can improve your VO2 max? Can you improve your musculature? Can you improve your posture? A lot of these things would have some positive beneficial effects. I'm not sure if it will 100% make things better. So you'll have to be on medicine, but I'm saying the dose will, instead of increasing, maybe it will remain constant or reduce.
Yeah. Makes sense. I know we are well out of time, and there are so many more questions I think I'd planned to ask you, JC, but we'll probably hopefully convince you to come do this again in a few months. But I wanted to, say a couple of things for the community. Number one is please do follow JC. Like I said, his content, I think he put it on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. So in any of those media, I think is a good place to follow him. Second, JC has started the first sort of diagnostics lab, but I think it's a diagnostics lab plus, starting in Pune.
The NCD clinic, yeah.
Right, was that?
Yeah, it's a lab plus NCD clinic. First lab in India working on a value-based care model.
Yeah, and I think, as you have now heard, it's a big deal. And so if you are based in Pune, which a lot of our community is, Please
Okay.
do
Wow.
check it out.
I thought you guys were like all outside India.
No, we are about 50% outside India, 50% in India, and within India, a large part of the community is in Pune.
Okay, interesting.
Right?
Very cool.
Yeah, so I would highly recommend that that the people in Pune or people around Pune definitely check it out. And I think JC, this clinic is now open, right? For even for the
Yeah, it's
consumer.
in Kharadi. Yeah, it's open now. It's in
Yeah,
Kharadi.
it's in Kharadi. So Ashish said longevity lab tie up with the lab. Absolutely, we will figure out a way. But I highly recommend people do these two things as actionable things. And then what my takeaway from what JC said is it really comes down to the basics. You don't have to do anything extreme, anything magical. If you hear something that sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Just stick to the basics. And once you've done the first order stuff, then let's think about second and third order stuff. Sometimes we just don't give enough importance to the basics. But all in all, JC, thank you so much for an amazing conversation. And for those who are wondering, how open JC is, how he doesn't hold back. I think you got to see it for yourself, and you can see all the love that's pouring out, JC, on the.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. It's amazing.
And Jitendra says, big shout out from a fellow Indorian. Thank you for the straight up eye opener on health. We need JC backup for more mindset change. Health shift will happen.
Perfect. Thank you. Amazing. Thanks,
Great.
guys. Have a great day.
Thank you, JC. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.